Most people see my wins, but very few people know the biggest mistake that I've made in business. That one decision that cost me money, time, and most importantly, almost my confidence. If I could go back and change one thing in my journey, it would be this. Remember, there was a friend of mine, he called me up one day. He's like, hey, what do you know about trading? I said, I know quite a bit. I've dabbled in trading a lot, personally trading for myself way before getting into e-commerce. He was like, hey, I'm looking into this thing and somebody sent it to me and, it looks really good, but I don't know what it is. Can you take a look at it? I'm like, sure, cool, and of course. And I was like, there's a 90% chance that you're gonna lose your money. I was on the phone and I literally told him that. I said, there's a 90% chance you're gonna lose your money. And he was like, yeah, but I don't really know the questions I should be asking. Why don't you come and, ask some questions just to see if it's a good thing? And at the time, I'm making $200,000, $300,000 a month in my e-commerce business. I'm like, I don't really have the time for that. But out of respect for this individual, I said, I'll go and, I'll ask the questions and see if there's something there. Lo and behold, I went there and it seemed good. It smells good, right? That's with every business, right? With every investment. It always looks good. It seems good. The stats were there and things like that. But ultimately, the exact thing that I told him on the phone in terms of there's a 90% chance that you're going to lose your money, that ultimately ended up happening. And I've lost multiple six figures myself in that venture, not including the multiple eight figures that I was supposed to get paid. That would probably be the one thing that I go back and change in my entrepreneurship journey. Financially, in business, you're going to lose money. 9 out of 10 things you try will not work. I've been dabbling in entrepreneurship since I was 17 years old. So I've made money, lost money, right? And 9 out of 10 things that you try will not work. So that itself doesn't bother me. And money is just an idea. It's a state of mind. You come up with an idea, you bring that idea to life, you put action behind it, and then, it becomes a business model and something that is profitable, right? As long as you put in the work. The biggest challenge for me was seeing my personal friends, family members lose money. I'm okay with losing my own personal money. Losing millions of dollars is not something that any of us entrepreneurs want, but it happens, right? But seeing friends and family members and close business colleagues lose money, that was really tough for me. They always say in business, you have to do your due diligence and, look for the red flags, so to speak, right? You can do your due diligence all you want. You're always going to miss something, right? There's always a level of risk. There's always something that you don't see. And, as they say, hindsight is 20/20. Afterwards, you're like, man, how did I not realize that? Or how did I not see that? But it's just part of the game. For me, I always look at the exit. Like, what does it look like in terms of me getting out of this deal? If I need to, exit the deal, what does that look like for me, right? And then secondly, most of the time these days I invest in things that I control, like my own primary businesses. So I have to have some sort of control, know that I'm the one behind the wheel because I know myself, right? I'm not going to give up as an entrepreneur. And I would say investing into things that has some type of tangible aspects to it. If I put $1 into something, if it goes south, I want to know that I'm going to get 80 cents back or I'm going to get 50 cents back. I'm not in the business of investing $1 to lose the entire dollar. I want to know what is my bottom line. And then also there's a saying, right? Believe nothing you hear and 50% of what you see. It sounds like this, clouded judgment, negative mindset, whatever, right? Some people say, oh man, how can you have this mindset where, you know how they always say poor people pass on opportunities repeatedly, right? All these sayings. But I believe nothing I hear and 50% of what I see. And number two, take your emotions out of it. Take your emotions out of business, because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we see the end in mind. We see everything that we can potentially accomplish. And we get into this euphoria of like, how great life is going to be and how awesome. And you see all your dreams, all the materialistic stuff that you're going to be able to buy and things like that. You have to take your emotions out of it and look at what's in front of you. What is it exactly that you're looking at? And then lastly, I would say own the lesson, not the loss. Mistakes are tuition. As long as you extract the value out of it, the knowledge out of it, and you don't continuously repeat the same mistakes. You're always going to miss something. You can evaluate it up and down, and it's always a great idea. Every time you get into a business deal, it always sounds great, and it always seems like, oh, this is the one. But out of all the opportunities that this is the one, 9 out of 10 of them are going to fail. So it's just part of the game. I think the most common mistake that new entrepreneurs make is miscalculating what it's going to take. You know, I always say it's going to take 10 times the effort, 10 times the money, and 10 times the time that you expect it to take. And a lot of new entrepreneurs, they miscalculate what it's actually going to take, and they think, oh, I'm just going to do this 1, 2, 3. And there's always some roadblock. No matter how simple it is, it's always something. You just keep moving, you know, like what's the alternative? The only alternative is just to stop and quit. And, you know, I've come way too far to quit. Just keep moving. You know, you take a hit and you reevaluate, you learn from that lesson and keep going. I don't think there's one specific red flag that you should look for. There's always going to be something that you miss regardless. Personally, for me, these days when it comes to deals, like I mainly invest into things that I'm knowledgeable about, things that I fully understand, things that I have some control over, and then investing into things where you can get a percentage of your money back if it goes south, right? Like I said, you know, getting 50 cents back out of the dollar, getting 80 cents back. There's not one specific red flag, and there's always going to be that red flag that you miss. Is your capital tied to some type of tangible asset, something that you can sell if it doesn't go right? Like, for example, our e-commerce business, right? I'll give you a perfect example. All of our clients were buying and investing into tangible goods. So when we buy $1 million worth of products and send those products to Amazon, let's say, for example, there's something that happens in the market, price fluctuation, competition in the marketplace, whatever the case may be. There's no scenario where we buy $1 million worth of product and $1 million vanishes into thin air, right? It's always like, okay, maybe we have to decrease prices a little bit. We may not make as much margins as we're expected to make, but there's a tangible good involved to where your capital is backed by something. So my final thought would be that mistakes don't kill success. Ego does, right? You're not supposed to avoid every mistake. You're supposed to learn faster than most and get through it. For me, it's how fast can I go through all the failures? So if you're in the season of rebuilding, I've been there. Click the link below and tap in.